Hey guys, Frankie here, and usually I talk about financial independence and early retirement here on the channel. And while student loans aren't directly related to that, they kind of are, because I'm still dealing with my undergrad and graduate student loans and will be for some time. While I've mastered most of my finances, I can't retire early technically until all those balances are zero. And if you're like me, you spent the election week closely glued to the TV. My eyes practically hurt from staring at the same numbers from the same random counties, waiting for a small change so we can finally elect a president. Well, after spending a day to sort of absorb the results, I started thinking about what the results meant for people's finances, including myself, especially as it pertains to student loans. So I went digging, diving into Joe Biden's plan he'd outlined before the election, and wanted to share everything I found here with you because odds are you too might be dealing with student loans, especially if you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s. Just like 45 million other Americans who hold roughly $1.6 trillion in collective debt. Trillion, like with a T. By the way, the average person has roughly $30,000 in student loan debt. Put another way, for perspective, 1.6 trillion would be the same as every US citizen having $5,000 in debt from student loans spread evenly. Also, the 1.6 trillion problem has gotten much worse, not better, in the last decade. In fact, it has nearly doubled since 2010. In 2010, it was at 8.33 billion. Can you imagine what it'll look like 10 years from now, especially if nothing gets accomplished during Biden's term in regards to reducing tuition and/or policy that provides some sort of relief for current borrowers? Before I move on though, let me be clear. This video is not about political beliefs or what I think about the results. I'm not here to compare the two candidates or give my take on if this is good or bad for the economy. I'm here to cover policies that Joe Biden platformed on and discuss what's likely and what's not. And stick around until the end because I'm going to lay out the most likely scenario in my opinion based on research the last few days. And I want to address one more thing before I move on to plans and policy. Inevitably, someone's going to instantly post, this is the student's fault, they were technically adults when they made the decision to take out the loan, so it's their responsibility to deal with it. I've seen this on past videos of mine, and I've constantly seen it on other people's videos and research, and I hear you. You're entitled to that opinion, but I want to respond here now so I don't have to over and over again in the comments. I would agree with you if we taught personal finance in school, or if money was a common topic in most homes. We've made progress in schools in recent years, yes, but it was non-existent for me and for most. I'm not pointing fingers, I'm doing something about it. I'm sharing my story, I'm learning, I'm sharing what I've learned, and I'm delivering how-tos and education on a weekly basis here on YouTube. I'm writing books to help others so that they do fully understand the importance of financial literacy and the long-term impact of huge decisions at 18 years old, in this case, when considering college and loans. And I'll add this, the rise of education and tuition costs in the last decade has gone up exponentially more than the rate of inflation or wages. As Forbes reported in 2018, the cost of college has increased nearly 8 times faster than the rise of wages in the US. And in the last 10 years, the cost of attending public universities has increased 30%. Tuition has more than tripled in the last 30 years, rising twice as fast as inflation in the same 30-year time period. Those statistics are alarming, but back to debt. It is nearly impossible for an 18-year-old to understand the importance of a student loan decision, especially if they were the first in their family to attend college, like myself. I even stayed in state. I earned nearly a dozen scholarships. I saved all my graduation present money. I worked 6 jobs over 4 years, and I still owe over $80,000, 13 years after undergrad and 8 years after graduate school. This is a preventable issue with policy, education, and having open conversations, and this video is my way of doing that. Speaking openly about money, the state of the student loan crisis, and what's possible under President-elect Joe Biden. You can still comment negatively if you want down in the comments below and blame the borrowers. Tell us to suck it up and stop whining and deal with it because it helps the algorithm either way. All right, where do we currently stand? What has President Donald Trump done? Well, in response to the pandemic to provide relief, part of the CARES Act pushed current federal student loans into forbearance. No minimum payments were due monthly, none at all, and no interest would accrue during this period, which is already extended once to January 1st, 2021. Now, as you might have picked up a moment ago from my mini rant and facts I spewed off, even before the pandemic, paying student loans was difficult for many people. Currently, in this environment, it's near impossible. And I do think it's extremely likely that payments will continue to be suspended under Joe Biden with no interest accruing. I'm seeing as long as September 30th, 2021, or until unemployment rate falls below 8% for 3 consecutive months. He may even attempt to include private borrowers not included in the current relief via the CARES Act. However, Most agree this in no way will work towards solving the real issue or providing any kind of long-term relief. Some might even argue it's not helping at all because it's actually reinforcing a kick the can down the road mentality. I totally understand the idea, and it did sort of get me thinking for sure. But let's talk more about what's likely or not likely to happen under Joe Biden, his platform and views on the issue. His plan is actually pretty extensive as it pertains to college tuition and student loans, and there is a recent interesting twist to what he might be able to accomplish on his own without congressional approval. I'll cover that in a bit, so stick around. If you're graduated already, first off, Biden supports $10,000 of student loan debt relief for federal student loan borrowers as an immediate response to the current pandemic. He's shown public support for this and ran on this platform. And actually, this debt forgiveness, this $10,000 for everyone, would completely erase loan balances for 30% of borrowers, according to an analysis. And the critical thing you need to know is it would be tax-free relief. 5 figures, gone. No strings attached. If you make less than $25,000 a year, he proposes limiting payments owed, which actually means no payments owed at all. So again, if you earn less than $25,000 according to your previous tax return, your loans will go into forbearance and accrue no interest. Joe Biden's plan would also expand on the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, and this is a program available to people who work for a nonprofit or government. Currently, loans are completely forgiven after 10 years or 120 on-time payments. The change he would make, though, is, again, this forgiveness would be tax-free. Currently, you would owe a lump sum of taxes, as that forgiveness is actually considered income. Further, though, regarding public service loan forgiveness, going forward, this would allow for giving $10,000 for every year of public service worked for up to 5 years. That's $50,000 in total, and enrollment would be automatic. So to clarify, this means $10,000 a year instead of one big forgiveness amount after 10 years of on-time payments like we currently have, tax-free. In terms of how the current program and this new program would interact, well, we're gonna have to wait and see. There aren't details on that just yet. More on forgiveness that impacts everybody though. All federal student loan borrowers would be eligible for student loan forgiveness after 20 years, similar to the current policy. But again, it would be tax-free once forgiven. Currently, you would owe taxes on that forgiveness if you receive it. And while everyone is grateful for forgiveness, that tax bill in the end can be jarring. In fact, some people would have to take out a loan just to pay this tax because they didn't understand this part of the policy. This isn't ideal, obviously. Joe Biden would also revamp the federal student loan repayment plans. Under Biden's plans, the federal student loan income-driven repayment system would be massively simplified. Because, let me be clear, it is a bit confusing at the moment. The current income-driven repayment system has 4 plans with varying rules and qualifications. Even as a self-proclaimed money nerd, I still struggle to get my head around it. Under Biden's plan, borrowers making more than $25,000 a year would all be placed on one single income-driven repayment plan. And again, enrollment would happen automatically. And under $25,000, like I just covered, you won't owe payments at all. But here's the details of this single simplified version. You would owe just 5% of discretionary income, money you have left over after necessities like food and housing. Current payments are currently at 10 to 20% of discretionary income. After 20 years of qualifying payments, the remaining balance would be forgiven. And this forgiven balance, as I previously mentioned, would not be taxed as income. Finally, borrowers can opt out after being automatically opted in if you decide not to participate for whatever reason. What about current and incoming students? Well, let's talk about, quote, the Biden plan for education beyond high school. For current students, President-elect Joe Biden has proposed that if your family makes less than $125,000 as a household, you can go to a public college for free. Yes, to reiterate, if your family makes less than $125,000 a year, a 4-year public university would be free for you to attend. Roughly 80% of American households would qualify, as campaign estimated. In addition, community college would be free for anybody and everybody for 2 years, not just recent high school graduates. The same goes for minority-serving institutions like historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs. Those would be free for 2 years, no strings attached. My understanding, though, is that all of this would require congressional approval for the free college. It's worth pointing out with this free college, it only applies to expenses related to tuition. It doesn't cover room and board and books and transportation and so on. And again, the proposal for free public college would require new laws. Without Democrats controlling the Senate, the likelihood will be, well, not very likely, but not technically impossible over a 4-year term. He also wants to double Pell Grants. which provide free assistance for low-income students. It's already the largest federal grant program to help those with exceptional financial needs. He would also invest $50 billion in high-quality training programs that have a high track record of participants completing their programs and securing good jobs. You might be wondering, well, who's going to pay for all of that? Somebody has to foot the bill, and you're right. It's not totally clear. His campaign says that the super wealthy will pay for it over 10 years. He would limit itemized tax deductions for the super wealthy, but this part has actually been removed from the Biden website. Going back to current graduates, I have two more important notes to add there. I've yet to talk about private student loans, which is about 10% of all student loan debt. Everything so far relates to federal student loans. Currently, those with private loans receive very few benefits. Joe Biden's plan would provide more protection for private borrowers. One example is making it possible to get your loans discharged if filing for bankruptcy by rolling back the 2005 Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act. Of course, those are all just proposals. We don't know exactly what's going to become law, and it's certainly worth keeping an eye on all this. However, there is one more thing President-elect Joe Biden can actually do on his own with executive order. Senator Chuck Schumer and Senator Elizabeth Warren introduced a resolution in September 2020 in support of the next president canceling $50,000 of federal student loan debt via administrative relief. $50,000, not just $10,000. This means the next president can do this on their own without passing legislation, or rather, the president could direct the Secretary of Education to cancel the debt. So in other words, Biden could cancel this amount up to $50,000 on his own in an effort to provide relief and boost the economy. Some education law experts actually agree he has the power to do so. The President's Secretary of Education has specific and unrestricted authority to create and to cancel or modify debt owed under federal student loan programs in the Higher Education Act, the HEA itself. Now, personally, I think $50,000 is very unlikely, but we have to get this pandemic under control, so I'm not going to rule anything out completely. Let's recap here. If I had to highlight the 7 most important points from President-elect Joe Biden's plans, it would be this. First, extend the current forbearance. No brainer there. Next, eliminate $10,000 of student loan debt for federal loans in response to the pandemic to provide immediate relief. Next, strengthen income-based repayment plans, adjusting to 5% of discretionary income owed monthly. Greatly improve the public service loan forgiveness program. Eliminate tax on all foreign debt. It no longer counts as income. Make private student loans bankruptable, if that's a word. And finally, free college. Free public college for families that earn $125,000, plus 2 years of community college free for all, same for minority serving institutions, 2 years, and even some certificate training programs. Will Joe Biden be the president to cancel all student loan debt? Not likely. However, I do think it's likely borrowers will receive that $10,000 of debt relief in the coming year. In fact, if I had to make a prediction, I think this $10,000 relief could be announced on day 1 in office, or at least within the first 100 days, amongst a flurry of other executive actions. Don't hold me to it, it's just a feeling I have. It may not happen at all, but my guess is it will, sooner rather than later. Beyond that, I do think we'll see changes in terms of forgiveness programs and the possibility of making colleges free to some, but it could take a couple of years because that requires legislation and congressional support. I do think making private student loans bankruptable is also likely to happen, and I do foresee changes to, or rather a simplification of, the current income-based repayment plans from 4 options to just 1 clear one. But $50,000 of forgiveness, I don't see it happening, not now, and probably not ever during his term or terms. But no matter who you are, don't bank on any of this or hope your problems are going to be magically fixed by the current or future presidents. Stay in the know, but don't assume someone else is going to bail you out. See it as a nice surprise if it does happen, of course, but have a plan otherwise. Don't take my research or my opinions to the bank. I'm very much not an expert on politics or policies. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've ever come near politics on the channel, and I did come across conflicting and ever-changing information. So that's a wrap on Biden's plan and my thoughts on what I think is likely or not likely to happen. But I want to take a moment to discuss why this debt crisis is so important in the short term beyond the obvious things I stated at the top. Tuition is rising exponentially, like I've mentioned, and honestly, I can't help but wonder if potential borrowers are going to reconsider going to college altogether, because as of the time of filming this late in 2020, we're still in the thick of this pandemic, and it doesn't look likely that students are returning to classrooms anytime soon. Does it still feel worth it to take out $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $40,000 or more for an undergraduate degree? Double or even triple that for going out of state, attending a private school, or earning a graduate degree. Not to mention, there's an alternative that's gaining legs and becoming quite popular, a projected $320 billion industry by 2025. It's online learning. Companies like Google even now offer free training and certificate programs for just $49 a month. If companies beyond Google start accepting these career certificates, well, it might be a whole new ballgame and open up doors for lots of similar programs, many of which could be free or very inexpensive. Speaking of, in response to the lack of financial literacy happening in schools and difficulty finding good resources myself at times, I decided to dip my toes in the education waters once again. As an ex-high school teacher that's become passionate about financial literacy the last few years, I wanted to pay it forward in a sense. Everything I've learned from books, blogs, podcasts, TV shows, movies, and especially YouTube videos, I decided to create my very first online course. It's called Save Money Resolution. In it, I'm going to outline my 7-step system for saving your first or next $10,000, because I firmly believe $10,000 is a magical number, and apparently so does Joe Biden. 5 figures saved was the moment I found momentum, encouragement to keep pushing forward, and everything became so much easier from there in terms of growing my net worth and learning to thrive financially for the first time in my life. Head on over to themoneyresolution.com for more information. I'm aiming to launch late November 2020. And if you want to support me and the channel and invest in yourself in the process, this is an excellent way to do so. It's all my best tips in roughly 2 hours of video lessons with slides, worksheets, and more. You're gonna dig it, I promise. I literally guarantee it with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So start 2020 right with a resolution you're actually going to accomplish, ideally in less than a year. Okay, final thoughts here. Policy aside, good financial decisions start at home. They should continue in the classroom with required courses, and we're starting to see some momentum there in high schools. And we must do something about rising costs, especially for the 2021 school year. Students are still paying more to earn a degree in 2020 than 2019, despite the pandemic, and learning via Zoom at home and not having access to all the resources attending a college in person provides. Yes, we have a current student loan crisis holding people back, and we must provide some relief, in my opinion. Yes, I do think President Joe Biden is going to provide some, likely $10,000, but this is just a Band-Aid. We need to get to the root of the issue, which I think is pre-college financial education and reducing college tuition, not raising it exponentially. And I'm gonna channel my inner John Oliver here to end this. If we don't, because of the rise of online learning, I think the entire college system could be in trouble. People are waking up to the fact that their debt is holding them back from so much. Buying a home, having a family, or pursuing a career of choice. And so many people have decided enough is enough. I think President Joe Biden is one of those people. President Joe Biden, Congress, your move. What questions do you have? Are you looking forward to these potential changes? Do you agree or disagree with Biden's policies or my thoughts? Did I get something wrong? I understand this is a hot topic, but feel free to express yourself, but be respectful to one another in the comments below. No matter your political belief, there is no excuse for being disrespectful or mean. I do try to reply to everybody, especially nice people. That's it for this week. My name is Frankie, this is The Money Resolution. I do hope this video was helpful for you. This video was not on my huge list of ideas for the channel, but I would say student loans is my last big financial stress in my life, so I do appreciate you indulging me while I get educated and share it forward. Like this video if you got value out of it or learned something new. Subscribe if you want to resolve to get good with money. I put out videos weekly. I'm on a mission to retire early and here to share my journey and help you do the same. Thanks for watching until the end as always. I'll see you guys next week on the next one, or maybe in my course. Okay, I didn't know where to put this in the video, so I'm just gonna leave this here. If you are dealing with student loan debt and you feel shame over it, don't. If you don't talk about it, talk about it. Because shame and silence is giving the schools, the banks, and even the government all the power. And just know that you are not alone. But good on you for watching videos like this. Also know that I'm rooting for you. Best of luck to you and yours. Thanks.